this is Captain Cap. I finished reviewing the first Metal Gear.
Excellent work, but your mission is far from over. With the next two games, I'd recommend that you cover them both, as they are closely related. Metal Gear for the NES and Snake's Revenge. Good luck. You're gonna need it.
The two games I'm going to be talking about today are what I like to call official rip-offs. Let me explain. Since Metal Gear 1 for the MSX did so well, Konami got an idea. A wonderful, awful idea. They would make a port for the NES. Now, from a business perspective, this made a lot of sense, porting one of your most popular game onto the most influential console at the time. With that being said, they did a very poor job in translating it, not only in the text, but also when it comes to preserving what made the original game so special. The Konami division in Tokyo developed this game by reusing the source code from the MSX version, without Kojima's or the original team's consent, mind you. It was developed over the course of 3 months and was released in December in America.
Metal Gear ファミコン用カセットメタルギア発売中
Despite selling quite well and being the first Metal Gear game in America, this game was born plagiarized. Hell, even the box art is plagiarized. The guy in the front who's supposed to be Solid Snake is actually a still from the first Terminator film, Michael Biehn's character, Kyle Reese. Kojima himself has actually disowned both Metal Gear NES and Snake's Revenge, meaning they're not canon to the whole Metal Gear saga. But that doesn't mean I don't have to talk about them, as they are official Metal Gear games. So the game kicks off with 4 people parachuting from an airplane, and we end up in the jungle for some reason. I suppose this was done to help this game stand out compared to the original game, but since this game literally is a port, wouldn't it make more sense, or perhaps take less effort, to completely change the setting? But just because the setting has changed doesn't mean the objective has. You play as Solid Snake, a rookie from Foxhound, and you're armed with nothing but your smokes and advice from your radio as you infiltrate the military base Outer Heaven and destroy Metal Gear. With that being said, they messed up how the sub-menus work. You see, in the first game, it only took one tap of the shoulder button and you could instantly access whatever you wanted on the fly. But here, everything is tucked away in this small little menu, which is fine, and I can only guess this was done because the NES controller actually doesn't have shoulder buttons like modern controllers, or even the Super Nintendo one. On the next screen, you get a taste on how the stealth works in this game. The enemies move in 4 directions, and you need to stay out of their line of sight so you don't raise the alarm and die. Luckily, this works exactly like the first game. However, there were plenty of times where I took out some guard, go get an item, and the moment I step back, they respawn and instantly spot me. As I was playing, I will admit that there were times where I was caught for being too careless, but stuff like this happened way too often for me to call it fair. When you die, you wind up all the way back on the first screen. You get to keep all your items, but you have to sneak your way all the way back where you were before. But to be fair, in the last third of the game, there are some slightly more generous checkpoints. A lot of games from this era did a similar thing, where the difficulty may be high, but the game itself in actual length is actually quite short. By sending you all the way back to the beginning, it makes the game feel longer. Either way you slice it, it's still very tedious. After messing around with some trucks and getting lost in Vietnam, I suppose, I make it into the base and it starts to feel more like home, and I managed to get quite far due to my knowledge of the first game. But there were some stupidly difficult moments, like these rows of corridors that either lead to my good friends the pits, hello, or these guards that instantly spot you. Further on, I get captured again and meet up with Grey Fox and get ambushed by the shot maker. Oh, I'm sorry, the shotgunner. And despite getting my equipment back and removing this little transmitter, I had no ammo for all my guns and my fists barely made a mark on them. So with no ammo, I would have to reload the entire game and stock up as much ammo as possible just for this one fight. But you know, I didn't do that. What I actually did was rush right past him, used the keycard on the door, and escaped, leaving him there rolling around, shooting at nothing for all eternity. From here on out, I used the info I got from Ripoffs to find Dr. Madnar, take out some tanks, rescue some hostages, beat some bosses, the typical Metal Gear shebang. With that being said, do you remember in my last review where I gave the original game flack for hiding important items behind walls? In this game, I didn't have to punch a single wall to progress, as all the items were just behind doors. I'm quite conflicted about this, as I didn't like the hidden wall mechanic in the first game, as I felt it was cryptic and it wasted a lot of my time. And if you're playing this game for the first time, this will mean nothing to you. But as someone who's played the first game, I oddly miss it, as it took very little thought or effort to get these items. I didn't even need an antidote, as I could shoot all the scorpions without getting poisoned. And after entering the third building where Metal Gear is housed, I pick up the O2 tank, and once again, I get a strange call from Big Boss. But unlike in the first game where he ordered me to switch up the console, which was quite creepy as he's not supposed to know he's in a video game, instead, he tells me to just return to base, which completely destroys the fourth wall break from the first game. This one call made it very clear to me that this game barely understands what made the first one so special.
But I'm not done yet!
You may want to brace yourself for this. In fact, you should probably sit down because you're not ready for this, okay? You know Metal Gear, the bipedal nuclear tank, and the thing the game is named after? Well, it's not in this game. Yup, I couldn't believe it either. In the final room where Metal Gear is supposed to be, it's just 4 guys and a computer, which you can only take down by using the plastic explosives. And to be fair, I had more than enough this time round, so no resets this time. But here's where the game tripped me up. You see, I went on to destroy Metal Gear early, as I was frankly losing patience with this game. As a result, I neglected to speak to Dr. Madnar, let alone rescue his daughter. And in the process, I read online that the game cannot be beaten and the computer can't be destroyed if you don't do those 2 things. Meaning, I had to reload a previous save and replay a huge chunk of the game all over again. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I hate this game. And after destroying the computer better than any virus could, then absolutely steamrolling Big Boss, I take the elevator on the left and beat the game. Brilliant. And that was Metal Gear for the NES. A short, mediocre, frustrating shell of a game. If Konami put more care and effort into this port, we could have at least had a perfect emulation of the first game, meaning I wouldn't have to talk about it. And in the best case scenario, they had the opportunity to perhaps improve upon the original game and make it better. But no, we have this inferior clone. But hey,
It's not over yet!
as we still got one more game to talk about, Snake's Revenge, also known as Metal Gear 2. Since Metal Gear NES sold so well, Snake's Revenge was developed to capitalize on the game's commercial success. It even got a Tiger Electronic game, which is cool.
Game Talk, Snake's Revenge, the next generation from Tiger Electronics.
But, I'm not gonna review it. Why? Well, it's an LED game. It's what you see is what you get. And once again, Kojima wasn't involved with this, and only found out about this game's existence when one of the developers told him about it. Which is still pretty shady on Konami's part. But hey, let's just forget about that for 1 second and just look at the game as it stands. From the outset, I actually found this game quite promising. It looked quite good, sounded quite good, and you even start off with a gun and a knife. In the previous 2 games, you didn't get that, and you needed to use your fists in order to take out the enemies stealthily. But here, with the knife, you only have to get up close and
Bang! And the dirt is gone!
But then we get the intro jungle stage. It's in the dark and you have to avoid these spotlights, and unless you've drummed the entire layout of the land in your head, you just end up fumbling around until you're caught. But to be fair, it's still quite faithful to Kojima's original vision of stealth action. For example, there was a time where you can't get into this building if you've been spotted. You need to ride there without being seen to allow one of your teammates to distract one of the guards so they will leave the door open and away you go. which makes stealth 100% necessary for progression, unlike the previous two games, I'd argue. And once inside, I found that the guards' AI was extremely sharp, and it made me think on my feet constantly throughout the game. So far, this game feels more competent and engaging than the previous two games. I also find that the game rewards you for exploration and split-second decision making the further the game goes on, and in boss fights and how you deal with enemies. If you just stand there like an idiot in a new area, it's more likely you'll be caught and die. Scattered throughout the base are still these hostages you need to rescue, which also raises your rank and your max health. Only this time, some of them won't tell you anything until you use truth gas on them, which is slightly cruel, but completely necessary. Also, did you know that this game is a side-scroller? Yeah! Despite looking more like Contra than Metal Gear, these sections still need you to stay out of sight, although I do think Snakes' jump is kind of floaty and imprecise, and it got me spotted multiple times. And then we get our very first boss, and it has got to be one of the most frustrating sections I have ever played. You see, the moment you enter the room, these V-shaped guys rush you, and it led to many deaths as their synchronized movements make it difficult for you to concentrate your fire on them. The best way I find to beat these guys is just have a crap ton of rations on me to keep my health up during the fight, and just concentrate your fire on the one guy until they're all dead, which isn't interesting or challenging whatsoever. It's easily one of the worst bosses I've ever fought in a video game. Even worse than that computer, because at least it held me up in a more interesting way. Thankfully, the game does pick itself straight afterwards, as the bosses from here on out are actually much better. And I've also noticed that the items in this game are so much better than the previous two games. Gone are the days where I can't tell which wall is weak with the X-ray machine, and these boots tell you where the pits are. They're my personal favourite items. It even raises the stakes from the first two games. Do you remember in the first game the looming threat the Metal Gear posed? Well, after lighting up this section with my flare gun, it turns out they're mass producing them, so I blow up the ship and escape. Unfortunately, they still have a Metal Gear Mark II hidden somewhere within the base, and they plan on launching nukes all over the world. So I hop on down, use my mine detector to get by, and we arrive at something I've been neglecting to mention ever since the first game. With the way they work, some doors need a specific key card to open, and it never fails to piss me off as the doors aren't numbered, meaning you have to go through every single card just to open one door. It would be so much easier if the card with the highest number could access all the doors below it. But no, life is cruel and unfair like that, when I'm inconvenienced in a game that nobody should care about. After some more sleuthing and side-scrolling, I finally find John, the guy who sacrificed himself so we can sneak in. But the moment we untie him, he starts attacking us with a claymore, but once I put him down, he drops the power armor. We then come across a brief carriage ride that reminds me a lot of Spirited Away, with Snake looking off into the distance, how it travels over various screens until we make it to the final building. In this so-called final building, we finally get to confront the commander I've been hearing so much about. I find him, and it's Big Boss. Again, only now, he's a cyborg. What is it with Metal Gear games on NES with ripping off the Terminator? And he doesn't seem very happy that I steamrolled him in the first game. Now, he wants revenge. His fight is a complete pushover, as all I have to do is stand in this corner and blow him up with missiles, until he becomes full cyborg and he chases us down throughout the base, which is terrifying. Luckily, I remember that one prisoner telling me that his weak spot is on the soles of his feet, so I lay down some mines and finally put him down for good. Only trouble is, Metal Gear 2 gets activated and you need to destroy it before it launches. What you need to do is fire your remote control missiles through the small corridor several times as the countdown rushes ahead, which is very stressful as the missiles can be blocked off by these stupid metal parts, so stock up on as many missiles as you can find. With Metal Gear 2 destroyed, the mission is finally complete.
mission accomplished.
You know, despite me calling this game infamous in the first video, I was more referring to how it was made than the actual game itself, as this game is quite good, in spite of some very difficult and cryptic moments, but it stays true to the stealth action gameplay that Kojima had in mind. Speaking of which, once Kojima found out about this game, it actually inspired him to create his own official sequel, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, the next game on my list. So stay tuned for that. I've been Captain Cap. I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.